Welcome to this week's episode of the Rangeless Travel Podcast, where every Tuesday your favorite adventure travel couple, me, Britt, and my partner Ryan, share stories and tips to inspire you to book that next trip. This week we're talking pros and cons about traveling in all different size groups, and we've broken it into 4 different categories: solo travel, couples travel, small groups, and large groups. We've both had experiences traveling in all of these different configurations to different degrees. Like, I'm definitely much more of an expert on solo traveling and now an expert of traveling in a couple. And then you, I feel like, have more expertise in like small groups and large groups. Yeah. So we're going to start with solo travel.
Yeah.
And talk about some of the pros and cons. Now, I've done a lot of international solo travel, and my first ever solo travel trip was completely an accident. Like, I did not mean to be a solo traveler in another country where I didn't speak the language, but the person I was supposed to travel with ended up not being able to go, so I was like, well, I guess I'm getting on a flight to Costa Rica by myself. I had a great experience, and it was like the first time, because I had traveled by myself before that in the States.
Yeah.
But I was traveling, it was like it was just, I don't know, it was just a little bit different. It wasn't like the hostel backpacker vibe. Ooh, I'm hitting things. It wasn't like the hostel backpacker vibe that like I had been like craving, and didn't even really know I was craving that much until I really started doing more international trips. But it was the first time that I was able to like stay at a hostel and like make friends and like have to really step out of my comfort zone to meet people and just like not be by myself all the time. Because when I was traveling in the van, I was alone a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like
mix or integrate.
Yeah, because it was like 2014, 2015, like
before van life.
Like, van life wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And I was in the southeast, which like van life is not really a thing. Like, it is, but it's not. It's not like out west. So there wasn't like this community of people who were like-minded or doing the same things. Like, it was just kind of me. Like, I went 3 months in the wilderness like without talking to another human.
Yeah.
And just talking to the dogs. So like, that's like super aggressive solo. But when I got to Costa Rica for the first time, like, I made girlfriends. Like, I went to a hostel and I made one friend. Her name's Ashley, and she was my first like backpacking friend, and it was her first time going solo. So we like automatically clicked, and we went to like multiple different cities together. We had to figure it out together, and it was such a good experience. And I think she had a good experience too. We still like follow each other on Instagram, and once in a while we'll like something or comment and like just kind of like be like, oh, I'm so excited for what you're doing, you know? We still stay in like touch.
Right.
And I think that that's the thing with solo traveling. Like, you step out and
of your comfort
zone, and you're able to make friends. Like, when you're solo traveling, you
not
make
only
friends.
are you able to, you're kind of forced into
You're
it.
forced into
like,
making friends with people you might have never been friends with otherwise.
Yeah. Because if you go day to day for months on end without much like human interaction, you become like, even if you're not that social,
I started losing
you
it, yeah.
end up craving it, and like you'll talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, you'll just start talking.
I spent 3 months in the woods.
I know.
I was like, people? You know, I started talking to people at Walmart.
Yeah, and not just talking to the trees or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And carving faces into the trees, talking to them as if
Yeah, but
you're
I
friends.
think that solo travel is a huge confidence builder.
Boost. Yeah, when you come back, you feel like you can take over.
You're like, I can do anything. Drop me off.
Yeah.
I could do it. Don't matter. Like, I could do anything. And you really learn to trust yourself rather than to rely on
external
factors
or someone else or...
Yeah. But with that, like, a con of that is it's exhausting because you have to be on.
All the time.
Like,
because you're in charge of like your logistics, where you're staying that night, your transportation, your flights, all your documents, like your safety, everything. So you're always being vigilant. You're always like planning ahead. It's not like just going to relax.
Yeah.
And
it's not that you don't get any relaxation as a solo traveler, because you definitely do. But like, as a woman who's done extensive solo traveling over the years, most of my traveling has been solo female traveling, you just like, there's that layer of safety that you always have to be like listening to your gut and like always like looking around and like always being like, okay, what time am I going to arrive? Is it going to be dark or is it going to be light? Because if the bus gets there in the dark, then I need to make sure that I book an earlier bus. Is there an earlier bus? Because I need to get there in the daylight. And if there's no option and I have to get there in the dark, like, can I arrange with my accommodation that someone will pick me up? Or is there accommodation right by the bus stop that I can stay? Or what kind of area are they dropping me into? Like, is this a bus that there's going to be a lot of other backpackers and a lot of other adventurers on? Or is this a bus that's going to be like all locals, which is like, okay, so like which one's better? I don't know, because it all just depends. So like you definitely will find yourself sometimes in like decision fatigue.
Right.
Where you're just exhausted from having to make so many decisions, like all the time.
But the one big benefit to like solo travel is the personal growth and also the agility. Like you can go wherever you want, whenever you want. The freedom of solo traveling. You can travel at whatever speed you feel comfortable doing. You don't have to answer to anybody else on anything. You're just number one is you, and that's it.
Yeah. So you grow a lot.
Yeah. And you find out what you want to do, what you like.
What you like, what you don't like.
What you don't like.
What your strengths are. Because sometimes you don't even realize what some of your strengths are until you're forced to use them. Then you're like, wow, I'm really good at that. Mm-hmm. Or what you're not so good at. Like, oh, I'm actually not so good at logistics. Or maybe it's like I'm not so good at budgeting because the only person in charge of your budget's you.
Yeah.
The only person in charge of like how to plan and organize is you. So like you figure out like where your strengths lie and where you need some work. You've also done a little bit of solo traveling, but not that much.
A little bit, majorly within the US, and like when I came over here I came by myself, but I did still have like a support system. I had family here and all that, so it wasn't on my own, but I would venture out by myself, go to different places, and just mostly driving, but like... Oh,
so you were doing like solo road trips by yourself. And what kind of experiences did you have? Like, where did you go? What did you do? How'd you like it?
I've been to like, well, it wasn't, I went to Nashville, went to DC, yeah. It was cool, but like at the same time, it wasn't like there's no community, there's no like, it wasn't really hostile. So
yeah, like, the US doesn't really have the hostels.
I want to go and see this stuff, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm bored, I don't have friends. So
yeah. The only con I have left on my list, because I have a little list here, the only con I have left on my list is similar to that, because like you're like, I didn't really have community, I didn't really have like you had a community here, but they weren't going with you in these places. You were going by yourself. And my last con that I haven't mentioned is when you get home, you have no one to share those memories with. Like there's no one to share the stories with.
Yeah.
So you have like these incredible things. Like I went to Nashville, I went to DC. Like these are dream destinations for people, and like no one to share. Like you know, like I went to Don Det, right, in Laos. There's very few people that go to Don Det. It's often skipped over, which it shouldn't be because it's underrated. You should go. When I was there was these amazing pink dolphins that you go tubing in the river, and it's like a whole day experience. It's really laid back. You like get in this tube, they take you up the river, and you just like float down the river, and like
that's cool.
Cross your fingers that you see pink dolphins, and it's really cool. Everyone does this tour there. It's just like one of those things you have to do. There's also a kayaking version. Everyone does either one or both. And you hope you see pink dolphins. I don't even know if the pink dolphins are there anymore. This was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I've heard rumors that they don't even live in this river anymore. But I did all this. I stayed in this like cute little bungalow. It was $6 a night on the water. Like one of my favorite places I've ever stayed. But like I have no one to like share about it. Like I can tell you, I share it with everyone, but no one is like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the cons of solo traveling is when it's all over, you have all this personal growth. You have all these amazing experiences that have created, you know, new self-confidence and a new understanding of like who you are as a person, and you've worked on yourself so hard and you've healed and you've done all these things, and then you like go to tell a story and like there's no one to be like, oh yeah, and remember when?
Yeah.
And I found also that when you share those stories, sometimes people, whether it's out of like jealousy or their own things going on, they're almost like, oh,
you can come across as
a little pretentious.
Yeah, especially
a little
like,
braggy.
Yeah, because it is not something that everyone gets to do.
Yeah, and it's super
reasons,
privileged to be able to get to do it. And yeah, so I think just like not being able to like share with someone. But then in that same sense, when you're back and you run into other people who solo travel or other people who travel a lot, they're like, oh yeah, you went there, and like you can share those stories, but it's harder to find the connections.
Right.
I think after coming home. But I recommend everyone at some point solo travel to any extent, whether it's like you said you did like some road trips, like whether it's a solo road trip, even if it's just for the day, even if it's just like taking yourself out by yourself to go to a movie or go and eat, because that's something you really learn when solo traveling. Because I know like myself, and I know I'm not alone in this, a lot of people feel weird eating by themselves or going to a restaurant by themselves, specifically going to a restaurant by themselves. But when you're solo traveling, like, you don't have a choice. Like, you have to eat. You get hungry enough. You're like, I guess I'm just going to go eat by myself. And I know that can be a challenge for a lot of people, especially when you're in a different country and your phone's not as fast, or it's not like, you're sitting there with yourself eating. Like, you're not scrolling on your phone. You're not anything. Like, you're just there.
Getting what looks from the locals. They're like, where did they come from?
Where did they come from? Like, what are they doing? Are they lost? Do we need to help them? Or are like they okay? So, that's a pro. I think that's a pro.
That is a pro, yeah.
You know, and I think you can put it in so many categories, like stepping out of your comfort zone or whatever. But then when you get home, all of a sudden you're like going to like grab food by yourself, and people are like, "You're going by yourself? That's kind of weird."
Yeah, no, I don't.
And I'm like,
it doesn't bother me.
No, like I'm hungry.
I got the idea from a friend's. And they used to go for hot dogs, like hot dog stands.
Yeah.
But I switched it up, and because I was in like the New York, New Jersey area, I was going for diners. So I was taking my motorbike out and going to a new diner every day not every day, but every time I took a trip on the motorbike, I would go to a different diner.
That's fun.
Yeah, by myself.
That's fun, yeah.
Yeah, and it was cool because diners are like something that's only around that area, really.
Yeah, and a diner is like a super American thing.
Yeah, so
like it's like an all-American diner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a cool experience.
That is cool.
That. Yeah.
That's a really good solo trip. Now, couple traveling.
Couple traveling.
Now, I categorize couple travel as you and your partner.
Yes.
Because you can travel in like a couple, like you and your best friend, but that's more like a small group.
It's different.
Yeah. I mean like together, like you are together. Because there are a lot of pros to this. It's really fun. Mm-hmm. I think that every couple should travel together if they're thinking about getting married.
Yeah, before you get married.
Travel together.
You could be living together, you could not be living together. You're going to find out more about that other person. You could spend 2 years living with them, but if you go on like a couple months trip,
if you go on a 1 week adventure trip, you're going to
find out so much more. One that pushes your boundaries when you're out in the middle of the wilderness or doing something crazy. Yeah. You're going to find out so much more about the other person.
Yeah, like it's hot. You're on a public bus. You're hungry. You're dehydrated.
You're
carrying your packs. You are so physically, mentally exhausted, exhausted and hot and uncomfortable.
And you can't find where you're going.
Yeah, you don't know where you're going, and then all of a sudden, like, you have to try to work together.
Those are some trying situations.
But, like, I think it's good.
Yeah, of course.
And then those are the same situations that are, like, the secondary fun.
Yeah.
It's because then you come back and you share those memories, and you're like, oh, imagine that we did that. Because it's doing hard things together. When you do hard things together, it's make it or break it. Like, you either come out stronger or you break up.
Yeah.
Which could be a con, or it could be a pro, that it's like, well, at least you cut it now rather than
then
later.
If you're like 10 years in with a couple of kids and a dog and a house.
Yeah, because then you add children to the mix, and now you're having all these like real problems or adversities or like issues that are arising because you're tired, you don't feel good, you're hungry, you got, bodily fluids all over you.
A lot of challenges.
There's a lot of challenges, and I think if you have traveled together, it's either going to make you or break you. So you fall back on that as well as those good memories that you had.
Yeah, of course. That's like a huge thing too, to have the memories together and the growth together too. Because you learn, that's the thing, when you're on the road together, you learn how to work together.
Yeah.
Like,
or you don't. That's it's all make it or break it. Like, you learn to work together or you don't.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, yeah.
And some people don't want to travel with someone before they're married because of that. Some people are like, I won't do any big trips unless I'm married to them because I'm going to make all these memories with them, and it's like a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I'm going to make all these memories and break up. I think do it anyway. But there's a lot of people that fully think that if you're not married, why would you do it? Because they're like, well, then the memories are tainted, and like you had this incredible experience, and now it's tainted.
I mean,
what are your thoughts on that?
It could be, but I think the memories are still worth it. Like, go and have the experiences, you know?
Yeah, I think so, too.
That's not a good enough reason not to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just being, I've heard people say this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, I would say go for it. Unless, like,
I mean, obviously you would
like, absolutely despise them and you can't stand, but, like, why are you with them then? Like, you know, if you can't stand being around them for long periods of time, why are you together?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't see why that would be an issue.
I don't think so either, but there are a lot of people that are like, I wouldn't go because I don't want my memories tainted.
I mean, when you're 70 years old looking back, are your memories going to be that tainted?
I don't think you're going to care anymore.
No.
You're not going to care anymore. So it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I also think that traveling in a couple, you learn money management.
Yes.
Together.
Yes.
Because if you're not living together, I mean, everyone does their finances differently, but if you're going on an extended trip specifically, however you're deciding to do it, you're going to share like every meal together.
Yeah.
You're going to have a stay at the same place tonight.
Transportation
costs.
It's basically split down the middle 50-50 for everything.
For everything, but it's like how are you going to decide to do it? Is one person paying for this? Is the other person paying for this?
Right.
Or is it like you're going to put it all, like you're each going to contribute everything to the pot and then like split it together? But you're also going to learn about people's spending habits because like if, let's say, like I'm personally not a big drinker. So if someone else is, drinking will eat up your budget.
Right.
So if, let's say you put everything in the pot and then you budgeted really tight for like a 3-month trip. So let's say you have, $800 to $1,200 a month. And I would say that's like a tight but doable budget.
For 2 people.
For 2 people, yeah. Tight but doable. And one of the people are going out drinking every night. Well, $800 to $1,200 a month doesn't really...
It's not going to cut it.
It's not going to cut it if you're going out partying all the time. And if you put it all in the pot, you're going to have to go home like 3 weeks early now because someone decided to party a lot?
Yeah.
So I think money management and budgeting is like a huge thing you're going to...
Yeah, so like we're pretty similar in terms of spending.
Yeah, so it wasn't that
I might
big
be
of a deal.
a little bit more spendthrift than you are.
A little bit.
But not to a huge extent.
No. And I'm a little bit more spendy in other places. Like, I like shampoos and soaps and skincare and like...
Yeah, whereas I'll be like...
I can just use this bar of soap for everything. It's a 12-in-1. Perfect.
Yeah. It'll degrease my engine when I get home, too. It's good. Like, I can use it on anything.
Yeah, what did you get? The one time you got, like... the cheapest toothpaste they had. Is that what it was? It was toothpaste.
Wasn't good toothpaste.
Oh, it was so bad. Or you also got their soap, and you got the cheapest soap they had. And I'm like, Ryan, you don't have to spend a lot on a soap for it to be a good soap. And then I got a good soap that I spent $1 on the bar of soap, where he spent like 35 cents on the bar of soap.
Probably less than that.
But it was such a nice bar of soap.
My hands didn't even feel dry or nothing.
Yeah, we were using this like antibacterial soap. I'm like, Ryan.
Oh, that was.
And
it
was like our whole bodies were like itchy.
It was like that soap that they use in the hospital for antibacterial soap. It was like iodine infused soap. It was not good. It was not
so
good.
I'm a little bit more spendy there, but again, like we split. We share toiletries and stuff for the most part.
Yeah,
like when it comes to soap and stuff, we just like, why do we need to carry around 2 bars of soap? Why do we need 2 shampoos? Like we don't.
No,
we just
we
share.
have 2 separate toothbrushes, but that's
yeah. We have 2 different toothbrushes. Look at us go.
Yeah. but everything else we pretty much split.
Yeah, it's just easier that way. But yeah, so that Something that I've traveled a lot more extensively solo than you have. So one of the things, if you're traveling in a couple or small group or large group or anything, there's less opportunities. So if you're long-term traveling, solo, or long-term traveling in general, usually at some point you want to stay somewhere for longer, whether it be like a month or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. You want to stay somewhere. And sometimes you want to find like a volunteer opportunity or like a work exchange at a hostel or something. If you're in a couple, it's a lot harder. It's not impossible, but it can be harder to find those. Where even if it's like, oh, you met someone in the hostel and they're going, like if you're like doing a European summer and you like meet someone in Italy and they're like, oh, I'm going to Germany tomorrow. If you're in a couple, that opportunity doesn't come up.
No.
Or if you're looking to do like a work exchange in a hostel, like if you're by yourself, people, especially party hostels, they want people that are fun. They want people that are outgoing. They're like, yeah, absolutely.
And they want people that are single.
If you're in a couple, it's a lot harder to find those opportunities, but there's different opportunities.
Yeah.
So like we've done like work exchanges in like a co-working facility where like we were a couple and like that's totally fine. They're different, but they're less. They're a little harder to find opportunity-wise, which I say is a con as traveling in a couple, as well as circling back, is making friends. Because if you're a couple, you're a couple. People
treat you as a couple, they think that you already have something planned, which you usually do, but like they won't you won't be invited to things.
You won't be invited because they're like,
and they'll just be like, oh yeah, those two are together, they're okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And
so sometimes you get a little left out.
But also we have the disconnect there because like we're working all the time or we're
filming a lot.
And it's kind of like alienating to other travelers. So they're like...
Well, they're filming.
They're doing something. I don't know what that is. But
yeah, but we have made friends with like other couples. But it's just a little bit harder because a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I'm third wheeling. And I don't want a third wheel.
Yeah, and like... It's not like
which we don't feel like that at all. Especially because we were friends for so long before we started dating. Yeah. So like... I feel like we don't give off that like dynamic where like it's gonna make someone else feel left out, but they don't know that.
No, they don't.
So you're a lot.
Everyone's different. So
everyone's different, and we're a lot like. So you're a lot less likely to like be approached.
Yeah.
Which kind of stinks, but.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But you build so much together and you do so many cool things together. And then you have those shared memories when you get home. So you get to tell those stories and be like, oh, remember when? Or I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Which I've really been enjoying.
I found that it's definitely like strengthened our relationship.
Absolutely.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Like a huge difference now between before we left.
Yeah.
And like just how we communicate, how we work together, how everything, like how things get divided between us and how everything works together.
Where like our strengths are individually and how we can use them to balance each other out.
Right. And typically our strengths are like two polar opposites of the spectrum. So we kind of work together well in that regard, like complementary skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Small groups. I have a little bit of experience with small groups.
So do I.
Yeah, I think most people do.
I would say small groups is anywhere from 2 to like 5 people.
Yeah, that's
and
what I was
when
gonna
I say 2, I mean like not a couple.
Yeah, no, that's
so like
separate.
You and your best friend.
Yeah.
And then anyone up to like you and like 5 people would be a small group. Because, I mean, 5 is kind of pushing it depending on the people.
5 is pushing it a little bit, but depending on the people, yeah.
Yeah. So I think small groups can arguably be the best way to travel, but at the same time can be the worst way to travel.
There's a few stumbling blocks that can come in with small group travel, and a lot of it revolves around, like, priorities and budget.
Yes, I think to avoid that, it's because... A lot of times it's like your friends in the group chat, right? So you know your friends. You might know your friends for 15 years.
Yeah.
And finally the trip leaves the group chat. Now in life, we all have different jobs with different budgets. We all kind of like different things. And it's kind of similar with couple traveling is you don't really know like how they travel, what their budget's going to be. So I think to have a successful small group, you need to talk about a lot of things that you might not talk about with your friends. And you need to make sure it's the right group. And if it is, go on with the trip. And if you decide that group's not going to want to travel the way you do, it's better to just
go by yourself.
Just go by yourself.
Yeah.
So I think doing that, it's like you have to extensively communicate before you go on budget. what kind of experiences you want to have, what your personal boundaries are. Like, do you need alone time every day, or do you don't really care and you like will like share a bed with someone, or you're someone that's like no, like I want my own room, right?
Right. Also, like habits and things.
I was gonna say like drinking and partying habits.
Like if you're all going out drinking all the time, that's great. You're gonna have a blast. But like if one or two of them are, and then everyone else isn't, or vice versa, that tends to eat into the budget a lot, and that can cause problems because you might have something big planned down the line, and then some people don't have money because they spent it all drinking, and then they're like, "Oh, can you just spot me or whatever?" And you're like, "I don't have that."
But then you end up doing it, so it puts everyone in an odd situation.
Yeah.
Also, talk about like what do you do if you want to bring someone home because you're all sharing a room. So like, are you cool with them meeting someone at the bar and like bringing them back to your shared
like
Airbnb,
a stranger,
or you're like hard no, you're not bringing a stranger in here? And then also in the same thing, it's like, do you feel comfortable with your friend going with a stranger, or are you going to be like, absolutely not, and then like rifts can form there. So I think a lot of extensive communication has to go on beforehand.
Because no one wants to like end a friendship over trying to go on a nice like trip.
Yeah, it's
and that happens like surprisingly a lot. A lot of people like end up going home early, or like
not being friends anymore.
Left. Or like they'll split, the group will split and not be friends anymore. And they could be friends for 10 years prior to this, and then they're no longer friends. And that's kind of a shame.
It is a shame. And when I say like different ways to travel, like I am a backpack budgeter. So like if I have friends that I know, they just go on a vacation. Yeah, and I love that for them. But I can't get a cocktail and sit on a beach in an all-inclusive all day. That's like not me. That's not the way I travel.
No.
So like if me and a couple of friends were going somewhere and I know that that's what they're going to do, and maybe they have a big budget and they're like, well, I get 1 week vacation a year. Like I'm going big, where I'm like, I travel full time. Like I don't really have the budget to go big. I don't want to make someone else feel like they can't do what they want to do.
Yeah, and you don't want to be...
And then I'm like, we're going and renting motorbikes, and we're going to motorbike this island, and they're like, I feel really scared to be on a motorcycle. And then they feel like yucky and uncomfortable because they feel like I'm like pushing them in to do something that's too far out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Like everyone has a different idea of what travel is. And even between us, we have different ideas, like slightly, not very much, but... It's all about how closely they align between the people, than like that, just to try and like stop any like conflict.
It's communication. But at the same time, it can also be the best. Like one of my favorite trips ever I did with a group of girlfriends and our one friend Dawn. And it was one of my favorite trips ever. We went to Barcelona for like maybe like a week. And it was me, 2 of my girlfriends, and one of our guy friends. And he went off and like kind of did his own thing, but then like met back up with us, and like we had dinner and we would like hang out for the day. We did like a couple museums together, and then he'd go off again, which is one of the other ways you can travel with like hybrid. Like he was part solo and like part small group travel, which is really good, and you get like a mix of both. But we communicated before we wanted to go, like what kind of accommodations that we want to stay in, if we wanted to go out partying, and like how much we wanted to do that, and what were the things we wanted to see. And what were our budgets. We talked about budgeting as well. So we all met in Barcelona, and before we went, we were like, oh yeah, I'm cool with staying in hostels, and like also we could rent Airbnbs, like whatever is like the best deal. That's what we'll do. So, and we all agreed on that. We were like, we're all comfortable with hostels, and we're all comfortable with finding budget Airbnbs. So we did that. And then we talked about experiences, and we were like, yes, we'd like to go out and experience the nightlife in Barcelona. Barcelona has great nightlife, but we're more looking for, like, we want to do tapas and wine and like walk around and like see the city. We also talked about like what kind of experiences we want to have. So we were like, oh, I definitely want to see like the Picasso Museum, and I saw that the hostel has like a free walking tour, so we should jump on that as soon as we get there, and then we could go for tapas. So like we talked about all of those things that we wanted to do, and kind of like how we wanted the trip to go, and it ended up going amazing, and we all had a great time. And we came back, and it's like you have these shared memories. You build like a closer friendship and a closer bond. You have these shared experiences, and you grow and get to evolve together.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's communication, baby. Which is everything. It's just communication.
Yeah. And then the last criteria is large groups.
Large
which
travel
you
groups.
Typically don't have a lot of
I've never been
with.
on a large planned trip.
Right.
I've done day trips in large groups, and I've also like led day trips because I've volunteered and done work exchanges in hostels and stuff. So where I've led large groups out for the day and then have came back. But I've never done like signed up for large group travel like One Life or companies like that. There's a lot of them, and they look really good. I've suggested for people to go on them, even though I've never been on them myself, because I think one of the good things about them is, particularly for women, if you are nervous about doing a solo trip, but maybe your friends want to travel a little bit different than you do, like maybe you want to be a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more out of your comfort zone, do a little bit more like off the beaten path, right? Sometimes those group trips are really good because you can jump into your trip and get a feel for where you're going to be, the area. You make friends automatically. Like, you make so many friends.
That's the thing with the big group trips. You all have this common thing that you can talk about. So you
all make friends.
Immediately friends with everybody.
Everyone.
Like, doesn't matter. Like, everyone's friends.
Yeah, and then a lot of times what happens on the big group trips is you make friends, and then you then plan, after the trip's over, you don't go home. You plan like a continued trip,
right,
and you continue backpacking with the people you've met on this group. Or you then start your solo because you've built up a little, you've seen how it's done. You've built up a little bit of confidence. You're like, okay, yeah, I think I could do this.
Yeah. My experience with big trips, I've been on a good few of them, mostly in college, like skiing trips and like mystery tours around Europe and things like that. Typically, the way we set it up was it'd be a big group, like maybe 150, 200 people.
That's big.
That's a big group.
That's huge.
Like
when I think of big trip, I'm like, oh, like 20 people, 25 people.
Yeah, and then sometimes it'd be as low as like 50, but
so many.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's typically like smaller groups within the big group. Like you're organized, they'll be like, okay, we got a dorm of 6, like, and okay, we're gonna find 6 people to go in that dorm, and like that's your group, your little group, and you usually go with your buddies or whatever. And
so where was your first big trip?
I think it was Val d'Isere. It was a skiing trip in college, and it was a big trip. There was probably over 100 people on that trip. But I went with like 3 of my buddies, and we were in a 4-person dorm. We might actually know we had an extra person that the random person got allocated, and we made friends with them, and they were in our group, and it was cool. And those are really, really cool because someone goes to all the effort and makes the itinerary, and your budget, like you're told how much to budget thereabouts for the day. Your package, you pay for everything up front. Your accommodation is sorted. Your transfers are sorted, flights, everything's
usually
included.
A certain amount of meals are included. And
so that takes all the headache out of that, and all you have to do is like have fun and show up and do things.
That helps with like the decision fatigue and always having it's taken care of.
But I wouldn't really class it as like travel. It's like going on a trip. It's not like...
It's like a field trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's only like usually like a week long.
But you loved it so much. You actually came home and then became the head of it and started planning them.
Not for the ski trip, but for a different trip, for the mystery tours. Yeah, we went on a mystery tour to Prague.
What is a mystery tour?
Mystery tour is where you sign up for the mystery tour, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a certain amount of money, and you pay your deposit, and then you have no idea where you're going.
That's awesome.
You just know the dates. So it's usually like a long weekend, a holiday weekend or something like that. And you have no idea where. You just know where you have to be at like the morning before or whatever. And everyone meets there, and then you're told where you're going and where the flight's going to take you.
How does packing work for that? They tell like pack for the beach, pack for
Like when I organized it, I gave a presentation beforehand because it's a lottery on who gets in.
Yeah.
So then we'll do a pre-trip briefing, like usually like...
But there's companies that do mystery tours where you sign up and you say...
They probably will send you an itinerary, not an itinerary, but like a checklist or like tips and tricks. And
no, so what happens when you sign up for these companies that organize mystery tours is you fill out like, I want a beach trip. I want, I want to relax. And then it'll be like, I want to relax on the beach. I want to have some excursions, but like also spend some time relaxing. And then it's like, I'm the ultimate adventurer. And you like fill it all out.
Right.
And then they match you with a trip. And like the morning of, they send you your location. So you know like what airport terminal to go to and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would give them like climate.
Yeah.
That's what I used to do. I'd be like, it was usually a city destination. And
because you're in Europe. So,
yeah, it was within Europe, cheap flights, Ryanair. And send them a climate. Like, okay, it was usually like, if it was in the winter, it'd be like, this is the temperatures you need to be looking at. You bring like a rain jacket or something like that.
Yeah. But what did you like about it? Like, why do you like it so much?
I loved it because like, it was so much fun. You make so many friends. Like, I knew so many people around college after that. Like, after going on trips like that, you just know everybody. And then they know, like, it's just a huge new social, like, explosion of people that you know. That, like, you'd be walking through and, like, people are like, how do you know them? I'm like, oh, it was on the trip together. Like, you know? So, and it was, like, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would say the only con to group travel is that you can't do what you want to do when you want to do it. Like you get, like they take all the decisions off your plate for you, but the trade-off is you lose the freedom to decide what you want to do. So if let's say you love a place and you're solo traveling, you just stay. If you love a place but you're on a group trip, like you're leaving because the trip is leaving, but you could decide to go back after if you wanted to go solo.
Yeah, I mean, you could stay if you wanted, but like you're going to be paying out of pocket and you're going to lose the cost to your stuff. But
you can't stay. You have to go on with the trip.
Right.
I think that's really the only con, and they can be a little pricey because I've seen them online advertised, like Kon-Tiki tours and stuff like that. Like they can be a little pricey because you're paying for the convenience of not having to plan it.
Yeah, I think ours was a long weekend. It was like budget was like under $200.
But you were doing it through your college,
so that's it was like subsidized.
Yeah, so that's a little bit different than like the normal person signing up for a group tour because like most group tours I've seen are quite pricey.
Yeah.
So.
But group tours are great for making friends.
Great for making friends.
You're not gonna get that growth of solo travel, like
no, but I think it's a really good launching point.
It's definitely a good way to get into travel.
Yes,
for sure.
I think the group tours are a really good way to launch into traveling if you're a little bit nervous, but you want to start traveling. I think group, especially if you want to start traveling solo, I think going on a group tour, if you're nervous to do a solo trip, is the best jumping point.
Right.
And then I think also if you've been traveling for a while and you're kind of just like
fatigued.
Yeah, have some decision fatigue. If you're traveling solo or in like a small group or in a couple and you're like, we want to make some friends and we've been doing this a while and we're tired of making all the decisions, we want to make some friends and we don't really want to just stay at a party hostel.
Right.
You can sign up for a group tour that's going to fit that because if you sign up for like a young group tour, right? There's a group tour for everyone, might I add. If you sign up for like a young group tour, it's going to be a party.
Yeah.
But you can sign up for like a group tour that's like specifically for like adventure travelers. You can sign up for a group tour that's specifically women's only.
Yeah.
You can sign up for a group tour, and a lot of it, you can even sign up for group tours that's like a widower's group tour where it's like only women who have like lost their partner or, you know, all different things. So it's also a great place to meet.
And it's a community.
It's community. You build community.
Like, yeah.
And usually there's like a Facebook group or something before you go as well. So you can like message the people and start to like build a foundation before you even go. I think that there's pros and cons to every different way of traveling. Every different way of traveling.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Do you have a favorite way of traveling? And you don't have to lie because I'm sitting next to you.
Favorite?
Favorite, yeah.
I haven't done enough solo traveling to know, but I think small group travel is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
For like just.
So like little boys trips.
I wouldn't.
With the boys.
Boys trips, yeah.
Boys trips.
They're like, and not for long term. Not for long term. Like a week, 2 weeks. Like not like 6 months, not a year. Like, no. But like a short-term trip, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then couple travel.
And then couple travel for long-term, because I think that's better than solo.
Yeah. I really like solo traveling, and I think everyone should do it. But I feel like I've done so much solo traveling.
Yeah.
At this point, like, I was really ready to travel with you and be like, and have those shared experiences and be able to go home and like share everything afterwards. But I think if I were to suggest, so like right now in my life, couple traveling, and different points in my life, it was solo traveling. If I were to suggest a certain type of travel, like if someone came up to me and was just like, I want to travel, and I listen to your podcast, and there's solo, couple, small group, and large group travel, what should I do? I'd look at them without hesitation and say solo travel. Go solo traveling. Go.
And if you're too nervous for that, then do a large group or something.
Do a large group.
And then branch out into solo.
And then do solo travel. And if you want to make friends, stay in a party hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to party. You can if you want to. But those are our suggestions for all the pros and cons of the different
types of travel.
Types of travel and different group sizes. If you want more of us, you can get us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at @rangeless_. And don't forget, we're here every Tuesday, so tune in next week. And until then, we're the Rangeless Travel Podcast. Bye.